Hi, everybody. This is Nathan Boone from the Indiana Farmers Union, and I am a food safety consultant and also a produce grower, and we are here to talk about cleaning. I'm also here with Tari Gary from Safe Produce Indiana. I'd like to introduce her and have her tell you about what she does.
Thanks, Nathan. As Nathan said, my name is Tari Gary. I'm the Food Safety Outreach Coordinator at the Indiana State Department of Agriculture, and I lead outreach efforts for the Safe Produce Indiana program.
Great. So Tari, why are we talking about cleaning? I mean, people have already done all their trainings and they've sat through day longs. And so why are we talking about cleaning again?
So cleaning is just so important when it comes to maintaining food contact surfaces in order to prevent contamination of produce.
Mhm.
And when we've been going on farms the last couple of years, this is an area where we are seeing a few gaps on produce farms in Indiana. Particularly, a few of the gaps we're seeing, growers are skipping that first cleaning step and going right on to sanitizing their equipment. So what we're
Mhm.
seeing a little bit of is growers just putting, bleach straight on dirty equipment, which isn't necessarily an effective method of cleaning. We're also seeing growers neglecting certain food contact surfaces and just not thinking about everything that produce is touching.
Okay, so we're gonna, in this talk, we're gonna go into that in a little bit more detail. Let me jump into another slide that will give us some information. So here we are. Why don't you take us through this, Tari, and kind of explain a little bit more about what you're talking about? Because I think growers, a lot of growers think about, the actual cleaning of the produce itself, and you're really talking about opening up the perspective to consider everything that the produce might come in contact from A to Z, basically from field to final distribution, right?
Yes. So the FSMA produce safety rule does talk a lot about produce handling, but it also talks about the handling of those food contact surfaces because those can be a source of contamination of our produce. So it's important to think about keeping things clean. And I like this slide from Produce Safety Alliance because it urges growers to think about everything that produce is touching. And the produce safety rule does require growers to have everything that is considered food contact on a cleaning and sanitizing schedule. So a lot of times we see growers think about, what's in their pack house, maybe a packing table or a wash line or a salad spinner or, things like that. Those are usually the first things that come to growers' minds, and they're
Yeah.
good about cleaning those things. But you want to think about everything from the second that produce is harvested all the way to when it goes out the door to the buyer. Everything that produce is touching needs to be cleaned. So think about things like harvest knives. Or harvest containers like buckets or bins.
Mhm. Mhm.
If you're harvesting directly into a truck or a wagon, if that produce is touching that, that also needs to be regularly cleaned and sanitized. And there are some other things listed here: packing and picking containers, packing equipment, any buildings, any coolers or storage areas where that produce is touching those surfaces. So really, I tell growers, you want to map that either in your brain or even better, map it out on paper. Go walk through that process and see everything that produce could touch.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I think that we all, like all of us, we get busy in the hectic season and certain things kind of fall by the wayside, but we have to keep these things in mind and keep our crews and our workers and even our family members up on these so we can continue to be safe. Let's go to our next slide. I think you wanted to talk about cleaning versus sanitizing.
Yes. And I really like this handout from Produce Safety Alliance as well. It really talks about the difference between cleaning and sanitizing, which is can be a difficult concept for growers to grasp. Like I said, a lot of times we see growers go right into that sanitizing step and they're trying to do the right thing. But that sanitizer cannot be effective on a dirty surface. We always say you can't sanitize a dirty surface. Cleaning should always come first. And the reason for that is that soil and that buildup on that surface just uses up all of that sanitizer. And then it doesn't do the job it's supposed to do, which is to reduce or eliminate bacteria on the surface. So this handout really goes through the 4 steps that growers should follow when they are cleaning and sanitizing equipment. I won't read this word for word, but I'll go through it quickly. So step 1 would be to remove any obvious dirt and debris from that food contact surface. So you can do this using a dry method, like a brush like that photo shows, or a hose. I always do caution people using things like an air hose or a pressure washer may not be the best method, because then all of that debris just goes in the air and can get on other surfaces as well. So just be mindful of how you are doing that. Step 2 is to apply a detergent and scrub the surface. This is probably the most important step. This is your actual cleaning step. So you want to apply a detergent or a soap that is labeled for food contact surfaces and use that according to the label. And really scrub that surface to break down any biofilms and get all of that dirt and debris off of that surface. And you can go ahead and scroll down, Nathan, because after you're done scrubbing, then you can go on to step 3, which is to rinse the surface with clean water. And remember, we want this to be water that is safe for post-harvest food contact, so 0 detectable E. coli. Don't forget about that important requirement there. So you'll rinse that surface, and at this point, you'll get all of that dirt, debris, and soap off of there, and that surface should be visually clean before you apply your sanitizer. If it still looks dirty, you probably want to go back and re-clean. And once that surface is cleaned, then you can apply that sanitizer, and it can really do its job, get down to that surface, reduce and eliminate any bacteria on that surface. And just a friendly reminder, make sure you are using a sanitizer that is labeled for a food contact surface, and make sure you follow the label. So use the right concentration. You may need to rinse that afterwards if necessary, but the label will tell you how to use that sanitizer.
Okay, great. Well, Tari, thanks so much. I mean, this is such an important thing, and it's so easy to overlook. And a lot of us, when we get super busy, we just spray stuff off and think it's good. But you really, in my experience, there's 2 things I want to say before we knock off here, and that is, I can't overestimate the importance of doing it on a regular basis, because it's a lot easier to clean something when you're cleaning it regularly. If you let it build up and it gets super dirty and there's a biofilm on it, man, you really have to scrub it. And also, when you put the friction of your scrub brush and your soap onto a surface and you really work it, it's so effective. You can't just spray things off with water. You have to do some scrubbing. So I think that having, cleaning more often actually makes it easier, even though it sounds counterintuitive. It's just easier to keep the decks clean than it is to let them build up and then have to use a lot of elbow grease.
Absolutely. And it helps you keep your equipment working right for longer. It wears down a lot quicker if you wait longer to clean.
Great. Okay, well, I think that's it. And thanks so much, Tari, for joining us and talking about this important topic of cleaning. And you guys have a great season and keep things clean out there.
All right. Thank you, Nathan.
Thanks. Bye-bye.